After years of my dad enabling his entitled wife's stepmom toxic behavior, I finally went no contact when she attacked my son over a wedding dispute. My dad met her when I was 13, freshly post-divorce, me still trying to process why my mom left, and him, just chasing anything in a skirt. He met her, let's call her Linda, at a work function and brought her home just 2 weeks later, like some kind of prize. And right from the start, it was clear she didn't want kids, especially not ones that weren't hers. I remember the first warning sign, like it was seared into my brain. Linda came over for dinner, and I was wearing this old hoodie, one my mom gave me right before she left. It had a bleach stain on the sleeve, yeah, but it was mine. Linda looked me up and down and said, "Well, I guess we're not dressing for the table anymore." Huh? I was 13. I hadn't even opened my mouth yet. My dad laughed, like it was charming or witty. That was the moment I knew something was off. Over the next few years, Linda did her best to cut me down in the most condescending, passive-aggressive ways possible. My dad never stopped her. She'd joke about how I was too sensitive, how I'd never find a wife if I kept moping like a sad puppy. She'd throw away my snacks and then say, "Well, we're all trying to be healthier." Even though she stocked the pantry with her kids' favorites, once she had my 2 step-siblings move in. She crossed boundaries constantly, barging into my room without knocking, accidentally donating my sketchbooks. I used to draw a lot, before I stopped, rearranging my stuff to help me stay organized. She once found a handmade birthday card I made for my mom and threw it out, saying, "You need to move on. This is just wallowing." I told my dad. His response, "She means well. You know she had a rough childhood, too." As if that gave her the right to erase mine. The worst part was how subtle she made it look from the outside. To family, friends, she was sweet and charming. Always hosting, smiling, making the best damn lemon bars you ever tasted. But behind closed doors, she was cold, dismissive, like I was a stray dog she was forced to let inside but wouldn't stop hinting needed to be put down. I moved out at 18, as soon as I had the chance. Joined the army just to get away, if I'm being honest. I barely came home during leave, and when I did, I stayed with friends. I got married young to my high school sweetheart, Sarah, and we had our son, Noah, a few years later. He's 6 now. The light of my life. I thought putting distance between myself and Linda would keep things peaceful. And for a while it did. But my dad kept inviting us back for birthdays, holidays, cookouts. Sarah, being the peacemaker she is, convinced me to go sometimes, for his sake. "He's trying," she'd say. "Noah deserves to know his grandpa." But Linda, she never changed. Every time we visited, she found new ways to cut Sarah down. Questioning her parenting, making snide remarks about our budget, saying things like, "Are you sure Noah should be eating that? He's getting a little soft." My dad still laughed, or worse, ignored it entirely. Sometimes I'd catch him looking at his phone while she tore Sarah apart, like he couldn't hear her, like if he didn't acknowledge it, he didn't have to take responsibility for the woman he married. I should have cut contact years ago. I wanted to, but I kept trying, hoping he'd step up, hoping he'd defend me or at the very least defend my wife. He never did. And then came the wedding. My cousin Emily, more like a sister to me, asked if Noah could be the ring bearer. He was thrilled. It was a small, rustic outdoor wedding, and Emily asked everyone to wear soft pastels. Nothing fancy, just coordinated. Sarah bought Noah the cutest little cream vest and bow tie combo, and I swear to God, he was beaming for days leading up to it. But of course, Linda had to make it about her. She wasn't even invited to the bridal party, but she showed up in this bright red floor-length gown, completely ignoring the dress code. Said it was her power color. That alone would have been enough to raise eyebrows, but it was what happened later that finally shattered everything. I'll get to that in the next part, because this post is already too long and I can feel my blood boiling all over again. Alright, so let's pick up where I left off, the wedding. My cousin Emily had always been the one bright spot in that family. She saw what I went through growing up even if she didn't always know the full extent of it. She was one of the only people who checked in on me during basic training, sent care packages, texted when Noah was born. Just a genuinely good person. So when she asked if Noah could be the ring bearer at her wedding, I nearly cried. Not just because it meant a lot to me, but because it made him feel special, and God, after everything Linda had chipped away in me, all I wanted was to protect him from that kind of pain. Emily made it clear there was a dress code. Pastels only. Simple, summery, elegant. Sarah was in a blush dress, I had a dove gray suit, and Noah, little man, looked like he belonged in a magazine. Off-white vest, tiny loafers, bow tie, and hair slicked back. He was proud. Nervous, sure, but proud. Linda shows up in fire engine red. Sequins, platform heels, and some gigantic hat that looked like it came from a horse race, not a garden wedding. Everyone turned to look. Someone literally asked, "Is that the mother of the bride?" Nope. Just my stepmother, desperate for the spotlight. Emily handled it like a pro, came over, smiled politely, and said, "So glad you could make it, Linda. We were expecting something more on theme, but that's okay." Linda smirked. Said something like, "Well, I don't like being told what to wear. I'm not a child." Foreshadowing, maybe. The ceremony starts. Noah's holding the pillow, walking slowly, biting his lip, trying so hard to do it right. It was a big crowd, probably the biggest he'd ever walked in front of, but he did it. Got all the way down the aisle without a stumble. Everyone odd. People clapped. My dad even stood up and clapped like Noah just won a spelling bee. But not Linda. She looked annoyed. Didn't even smile. Just narrowed her eyes and said to Sarah under her breath, "You'd think they were parading royalty down the aisle." Sarah ignored her. I heard it though. We get through the ceremony, and at the reception things seem okay for like an hour. Then Linda found me alone by the bar. "You know, it's a little tacky using your son as a prop," she said, swirling her wine like a villain in a soap opera. "A prop?" I asked. He was invited. Emily asked him herself. Linda rolled her eyes. "Oh please. It's all about attention with your wife. And now she's teaching him to crave the same spotlight." At that point, I walked away. I was furious, but I knew better than to give her an audience. But then she found Noah. I don't know exactly what she said, I wasn't there, but 5 minutes later, my 6-year-old came running up to Sarah in tears, saying, "Grandma said I was embarrassing and not important, and I only got to be in the wedding 'cause Daddy begged them." I swear I saw red. Like actual, blinding fury. Sarah was already holding Noah, shielding him like a mama bear, her face pale and shaking. And when I turned and saw Linda just sipping her drink like she hadn't just shattered a child's confidence in 10 words or less, something inside me snapped. I walked up to her in the middle of the reception and said loud enough for the people around to hear, "You ever speak to my son again, and I swear to God I will make sure you never see another family event for the rest of your life." She blinked. Laughed. "What are you gonna do, ban me from your cousin's wedding?" "No," I said, "but I'll be banning you from mine, from my house, from my kid's life. This is it. I've let you ruin enough things. You don't get to ruin him too." People were staring. I didn't care. My dad? He stood frozen a few feet away, holding a plate of hors d'oeuvres, looking like he wanted to disappear into the shrubbery. He didn't say a damn thing. And that told me everything I needed to know. Linda scoffed, muttered something about me being dramatic, and walked off. My dad didn't follow her. He didn't come to me either. Just stood there, holding that stupid little paper plate like it might shield him from the fallout. Later that night, he texted, "I wish you hadn't made a scene. You know how she is. Let's talk tomorrow." I didn't reply. Tomorrow never came. I didn't sleep that night. Not really. I laid there in bed, staring at the ceiling fan, replaying it all over and over again, Noah's face scrunched up in tears, Sarah's arms wrapped around him like she was holding his world together, and Linda just sitting there afterward like nothing had happened. Smug and unbothered. But what kept me awake most? My dad. Not just what he didn't say, but how used to it I was. Like my brain kept reaching for an excuse on his behalf before I even realized it. He was caught off guard, it's his wife, what could he really do? That kind of mental gymnastics? It's how I survived my childhood. But I wasn't a kid anymore. And I wasn't going to let my kid live under that same cycle of excuses. The next morning I got his text again. "Please don't let this come between us. Let's talk. Just you and me." I texted back. "Only if it's about you apologizing to Noah and setting boundaries with your wife. Otherwise, there's nothing to talk about." 3 hours later. "I'm sorry you feel hurt, but Linda was just trying to keep the spotlight where it belonged. You know how emotional kids get. That was it. That was it." I put my phone down, walked into the living room where Sarah and Noah were watching cartoons, and I said in front of both of them, "We're done with them. I'm not letting him talk his way out of this again." Sarah didn't say anything right away. She just nodded. Quiet. Supportive. She'd always respected that I needed to come to this decision in my own time, but I could see it in her eyes. Relief. Like she'd been holding her breath for years. I blocked them both that afternoon. Linda was easy, she'd never had my number directly, always went through Dad. But him? That hurt. Even as I did it, my finger hovered on the block contact button for too long. I think a part of me was still holding out for the dad I wanted, not the one I actually had. He didn't reach out again for a few days. Then an email. It was a masterpiece of guilt tripping. I can't believe you'd shut me out over something so small. You know how difficult she can be, but I'm stuck in the middle. I'm your father, and I deserve some respect. You're teaching Noah that it's okay to abandon family. I didn't respond. I sat down that night and wrote out everything I'd ever wanted to say, for me, not for him. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel ashamed. I felt clear. Crystal clear. The hardest part wasn't Linda's cruelty, it was Dad's silence. Not just at the wedding, but all the times before that when she humiliated me, disrespected my wife, tried to discipline Noah like he was some backup chance at parenting she never wanted in the first place. All the times I needed him to be a father and he chose being a husband instead. A few weeks later, my aunt, his sister, called me out of the blue. She said Dad was devastated and didn't know how to fix things. Said Linda had been feeling ganged up on and that she was considering therapy. I asked her one question, did either of them ask how Noah's doing? She went quiet. Then said no. I guess not. Exactly. Because they didn't care. Not really. They cared that I made it public. That I called them out instead of keeping it buried like I always had. A few days later, I got a card in the mail. It was one of those generic Hallmark things, some vague quote about family bonds and enduring love. Inside, in my dad's handwriting. I miss you. Let's talk before this goes too far. No mention of what happened. No apology. No Noah. Just a man trying to put the Band-Aid on my bullet wound. I threw it out. Because I realized something, you don't owe people a second, third, or 50th chance just because they share your blood. That's not family. That's obligation dressed up like loyalty. And I'm not raising my son to confuse the two. If you've ever gone no contact with a parent, then you know. The silence isn't peaceful at first. It's loud. Deafening. It echoes. It's all the things you wanted them to say but know they never will. It's staring at your phone, not because you want them to reach out, but because you're mourning the version of them that never existed. I thought the hardest part would be blocking my dad. I was wrong. The hardest part was Noah, 3 nights later, asking me, "Is Grandpa mad at me?" I froze. Sarah was across the room folding laundry and she stopped mid-shirt. The look we exchanged in that moment, I don't even have words. It was this mix of heartbreak and rage because this was exactly what we'd been trying to protect him from. "No, buddy," I said softly, kneeling beside him. "He just made some bad choices. And we had to set some rules." His brow furrowed like he was trying to work through something too big for his 6-year-old brain. Was it because I cried at the wedding? Did I do something wrong? God. I had to leave the room for a second. Just long enough to swallow the scream in my throat. Sarah stepped in, held him, told him all the right things, that he was perfect, that none of it was his fault, that grown-ups sometimes forget how to act like grown-ups. It wasn't until later that night, after he fell asleep, that I sat on the porch and cried. Not just from sadness, but from grief. Grief for the childhood I never had. Grief for the father I always tried to believe in. Grief for the fact that my son, at 6 years old, already had to question his own worth because of them. And then came the second wave, the family backlash. It started slow. A comment under one of Sarah's Facebook photos. "Miss seeing the family all together. Hope things aren't as bad as they seem." Then a cousin DM'd me on Instagram. Then an uncle left a voicemail. All of them with the same underlying tone, "Can't you just move past it? She's your stepmom. He's your dad. Life's too short." But none of them were there. None of them saw Linda kneel down at a wedding and look a 6-year-old in the eyes just to tell him he didn't matter. None of them lived through years of microcuts that bled into shame. Into silence. Into therapy sessions I never told anyone about. They wanted me to forgive and forget, but what they really wanted was for me to make them comfortable again. I didn't. Instead, I posted this on my private Facebook page, limited to people who kept asking questions. If you're wondering why we're not speaking to certain family members right now, it's not because of a single moment. It's because of a pattern. A pattern of disrespect, manipulation, and emotional harm to me, my wife, and now my child. I won't apologize for protecting my family, and I won't set my son on fire to keep someone else warm. Thanks for respecting our boundaries. It got shared. Quietly and then not so quietly. Some relatives backed off. Some offered support, people I never expected. One of my older cousins, who I hadn't spoken to in years, messaged me. I always hated how Linda treated you. Glad you finally said something. Let me know if you ever want to catch up. Even Emily, the bride, called and said, I'm so sorry. I had no idea how deep it went. If I had known, I never would have let her come. I told her it wasn't her fault. It wasn't. The truth is, I let them stay in my life for too long because I was scared of what would happen if I didn't. Scared of being the ungrateful son. Scared of disappointing a man who never once tried not to disappoint me. But you know what happens after you burn the bridge to a toxic person? You realize how good it feels to stop carrying the weight of rebuilding it every time they blow it up again. Going no contact, especially with a parent, isn't just a decision. It's a recalibration. Suddenly, your phone stops buzzing with passive-aggressive texts, your holidays are quieter, and no one's criticizing your life choices under the guise of concern. But the thing no one warns you about? The guilt doesn't go away immediately. There were days I caught myself unlocking my phone out of habit, ready to check for a message that wasn't coming. And when I realized why I did it, I felt that old ache crawl back in. That childhood muscle memory, the one that made me crave his approval like it was oxygen. But every time it started creeping up, something small would pull me back to reality. Like Sarah leaving a sticky note on the fridge, thanks for protecting our family. Or Noah asking, can I be the ring bearer again sometime? With this goofy little smile, like the whole ordeal hadn't shaken him. That smile? It wrecked me. Because I saw me in it. The me before Linda chipped it away. So I started doing something I hadn't done since I was a teenager. I journaled. Yeah, sounds cheesy. But hear me out. I needed to see the patterns to ungaslight myself. I wrote down memories that came up. Not just the big ones, but the subtle ones too. Like the time I got accepted into a summer arts program and Linda said, that's cute. But what are you going to do with that? Draw your feelings for a living. Or the Christmas where Dad gave everyone thoughtful gifts and handed me a pack of socks because I was hard to shop for. Little things. But they add up. Death by 1,000 dismissals. And yet healing started happening in weird, quiet ways. Like the night Sarah and I were on the couch, Noah asleep upstairs, and she said, do you realize how much more relaxed you've been lately? I didn't, not until she said it. The tension in my shoulders was gone. I didn't feel the constant dread of wondering when the next subtle insult or guilt trip would land. And then there was Noah again, unintentionally guiding me toward the light. We were driving home from school one day and he asked me why Grandma Linda never calls. I told him carefully that sometimes grown-ups don't treat people kindly, and when that happens, we have to make a choice to protect ourselves. He was quiet. I figured he didn't really understand. But then he said, I think you're a good protector. I had to pull over. Just sat there on the shoulder of the road, both hands on the wheel, blinking back tears. Because I used to lie awake at night wondering if I'd turn into my dad. Wondering if my silence would hurt my family the way his hurt me. But in that moment, that one quiet sentence, my son showed me I was breaking the cycle. And not just for him. For me too. Sarah and I started therapy together. Not because our marriage was struggling, but because we wanted to make sure we were strong in the face of everything that had shaken us. We talked about boundaries, about grief, about how to raise Noah in a house where love wasn't earned by walking on eggshells. We also started new traditions, simple stuff. Sundays became pancake mornings where Noah gets to pick the toppings. On holidays, we travel. No more forced family gatherings. Just us somewhere new. It's not flashy. It's not some big redemption arc. But it's real. It's ours. And for the first time in years, I feel safe in my own life.